Binnall, a lawyer for Donald Trump and founder of Binnall Law Group, joins me now from Virginia. Good to see you on. He's certainly keeping you lawyers busy, isn't he? What of the many cases he's facing are you directly working on then?
So I'm not working on either of those cases at all. I represent him on other matters, although, of course, these are important cases, not only for President Trump, but for Americans everywhere, as we kind of fight for the rule of law in our country right now and against the politicalization of our judicial system.
OK, let's talk about today, shall we, first of all? The appearance via video link in the fallout from the Stormy Daniels payments and a trial date set, March the 25th, 2024. Slap bang, as you know, in the critical Republican primary phase. No wonder he was shaking his head vigorously when he heard that date.
Well, yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And that just shows that, unfortunately, we have a court system in New York that is not currently politically neutral. I really wish in America right now we had the political neutral judiciary that Britons, quite frankly, are blessed with, that we just really don't have at the moment. And you see a judiciary in New York, a prosecution system in New York that's trying to interfere with the 2024 Republican presidential election. They know that they can't beat Donald Trump at the ballot box, so instead they're trying to prosecute him. This is a very, very dangerous time in America.
OK, well, let's examine the evidence specifically on this one then. Did he pay off Stormy Daniels, and were business records falsified in order to pay her off?
And more importantly, legally speaking, is that a crime? Is having a non-disclosure agreement a crime? Is it a violation of federal campaign finance law? Because his entire case falls apart unless it's a violation of federal campaign finance law. And it's not. Federal election commissioners, current and former, have written about the fact that these allegations do not amount to a federal campaign finance violation, even if what it is true. And remember that the factual basis for these claims are from Michael Cohen, who has pled guilty and pled and already admitted to being a liar, admitted to false statement charges in federal court, and has done prison time for it.
At the behest of Donald Trump. I mean, I've read his book twice, to be fair. And the question is, was the payments from Stormy Daniels, were they paid off via Michael Cohen? And was that effectively illegal? Now, you're saying, well, is any of it illegal? That is for the court to decide. But it does not mean, looking at the process of this, that it's trying to, change the result of the 2024 US election, does it?
That's actually what I absolutely disagree with, because when you take something where people on the right and the left have agreed that there's just no there in these charges, and then you have a prosecutor who has openly campaigned in favor of prosecuting Donald Trump, and then does it in such a way that it interferes with the 2024 election. You put a criminal trial right in the middle of a primary when almost all legal observers say that there's absolutely no legal basis for these charges. It unfortunately does show that the process itself is the punishment, that regardless of whether or not he's ever convicted, just by putting him through this process is an attempt to influence politics, not to enforce criminal laws. And that's the problem.
But the problem is, it's not the only case he faces, is it? We're still waiting to see about Georgia, the idea of election tampering there. We've all heard about E. Jean Carroll, which I'll come on to in a minute. The New York case as well, with the allegation that he inflated his profits in his business empire in order to raise debt and deflated them in order to pay lower taxes. I mean, we haven't even mentioned classified documents. It's one thing after another. I go back to the date of this court case over the Stormy Daniels fallout, right slap bang in primary season. He can't carry on, can he, as a candidate in this election and still focus on all of these court cases?
And that is the point, is that, I mean, first of all, he can and he will. There's nobody tougher than Donald Trump that can walk and chew gum at the same time, if you will. So yes, he will. But that is the point. You have, unfortunately, left-wing prosecutors, left-wing Department of Justice personnel who are engaged in what we're calling lawfare. And that is law not with the intent to win in a courtroom, but in order to score political points. And they're doing it in courts where they think that Donald Trump will not get a fair trial, both from judges in courts that are very anti-Trump and have made very anti-Trump comments, from the bench and in their personal lives. For instance, the judge in the criminal case in New York donated to Joe Biden, donated to Trump's political rival, and hasn't recused himself from the case. That's something that, quite frankly, would never happen in the UK. And then you look at all these attempts to try to defeat Donald Trump in the courtroom because they can't do it at the ballot box.
E. Jean Carroll, obviously, victory for her in her sexual assault allegations against Donald Trump, seeking further defamation damage payments now because he called her a whack job. He claimed the trial was rigged. He said she'd made up a story about him, all in a CNN town hall soon after the trial. The court in the Stormy Daniels fallout is genuinely concerned about what he will disclose. What advice are you giving him? Because, loose tongues, prompt penalties, don't they, in the court system?
Well, and I, of course, can't go into any details that I would give a client, but I don't represent him in that matter. And so what I'll say is that you can't, Donald Trump isn't going to be silenced. He's not going to be bullied.
So you're suggesting that if he gets disclosure documents in the Stormy Daniels case, he would disclose them, would he, as part of his campaigning? Is that what he would do?
Well, I mean, right now, one of the biggest issues in America is the politicalization of our justice system, and he's going to campaign on that. To assume that he's going to release documents, I think is wrong. But if it's an attempt by the court to try to shut him up so he won't talk about this case, which is, I think, the biggest issue facing Americans right now, it's not going to work. And to be quite honest, the reason that we have the First Amendment in this country goes back to the American War for Independence, the little dispute that our country's had once upon a time, where the biggest issue was something called prior restraints on speech, where the British government would impose on the American colonists a injunction against them speaking on political topics. And that was the number one issue that the founders of the American Constitution wanted to fight back against, make sure that never happened. And this injunction against President Trump speaking, the leading candidate by far for the Republican nomination for president, flies directly in the face of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. And quite frankly, there's no way it's going to stand.
No, we understand, the importance of free speech, no doubt about it. But, those against Donald Trump would say, first of all, the allegations that the 2020 election were rigged were wrong. The allegations that the E. Jean Carroll case were rigged were wrong. Your allegations that this future case is going to be rigged or is politicising the US court system is wrong and at best delusional.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, everything that you just said is factually inaccurate.
So you still say the 2020 election was rigged?
I'm saying that there were major problems with the 2020 election that were documented.
Major problems calling up Georgia, trying to get them to change their vote tally.
The issue in Georgia was, as the president said, the president's called it a perfect phone call, and any objective person.
Do you think it was a perfect phone call as a lawyer? Genuinely, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what the president was talking about on that phone call is that there were hundreds of thousands of disputed votes. And the president was pointing out, you don't have to go fight to get 100,000 or 200,000 votes changed. The difference in the election was 11,000. So we just have to prove that there was 11,000 improper votes. That's what President Trump meant. Everybody understands that's what President Trump meant. And that's something, again, protected by the First Amendment, protected by other aspects of the United States Constitution. I think that it'd be preposterous if this district attorney actually brought charges on that. And quite frankly, I think that if she does charge anything, it's not going to be that. But whatever charges she brings regarding the election is truly dangerous for freedom of speech and for political freedom in the United States. And I think it's very unlikely that those charges are going to stand if she does try to bring them.
Donald Trump, he must be tired by all of this. I mean, why not? He's in his 70s. Why not just sort of retire and, slink away from all of this? Because it's exhausting, isn't it? It must be exhausting for all of you and his legal team.
It is certainly an exhausting process to put up with everything that's out there. But let me tell you something, it's much more so for us lawyers than Donald Trump. I've never seen anybody with the energy and the passion for the American people that Donald Trump has. And he simply is not going to be silenced, and he's not going to just lay back and quit and say, I just got to focus on these legal cases. He knows that these legal cases are all an attempt to try to get him out of the race, to get him out of the picture. And I've never seen him slow down. I've never seen these cases do anything other than fire him up even more. This is a passionate man. He's passionate about these issues for the American people. And in the end, I'm confident he's going to win.
Jesse Binnall, lawyer there for Donald Trump. Fascinating to hear your thoughts there. Founder of Binnall Law Group, joining us from Virginia. Hope you'll talk to us again. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
I hope so. It was a pleasure. Thank you.